I love those who can smile in trouble, who can gather strength from distress and grow brave by reflection. This is the business of little minds to shrink, but they whose heart is firm and whose conscience approves their conduct will pursue their principle unto death. With this wonderful thought, a very good morning to all my dear students. I hope that you all are in good health. This is Shreya Jadhav welcoming you all to my e-learning channel. And today we are going to do English Grade 10 Chapter 8 Mitchell the Otter, written by Gavin Maxwell. In the previous video, we all have gone through the reading and explanation of the chapter. We almost have completed the first, second and third part of the chapter. The chapter is divided into various different parts. Today we shall continue with the reading and explanation of it. But before starting, we shall go through something about the author. Gavin Maxwell, born on 15th July 1914, died 7th September 1969, was a Scottish naturalist and author, best known for his non-fiction writing and his work with otters. He wrote the book Ring of Bright Water, about whom he had brought an otter back from Iraq and raised in Scotland. The otter was previously unknown subspecies which was subsequently named after Maxwell. Introduction for answer. Dear students, always remember that whenever you are appearing for exams or tests, keep in mind and start your answer with introduction. This creates a good impact. So here it is. Prose. Prose name Mitchell the Otter. Author's name Gavin Maxwell. Genre short story. Summary. Gavin Maxwell in his story tells us about how he has adopted a new pet otter and his journey with him. So now let us go through the summary of the chapter. The writer Gavin Maxwell's dog Johnny died in his Scottish home in Camosphernia. The writer was too sad to think of keeping a dog again. However, when he traveled to Iraq in 1956, he thought of keeping an otter as a pet. A friend told him that he could get one from the Tigris marshes. Otters were as common as mosquitoes in that region and were often tamed by the Arabs. Maxwell went to Basra to collect his mail. His friend, who was with him, received his mail and left. The author's mail arrived only after 5 days after he cabled to England and booked a call. When he took his mail to his bedroom to read, he found that squatting on the floor were two Arabs. They had a sack which was squirming with an otter in it. The writer named him Mitchell, which he casually or usually liked to be called as Midge. The otter was a small, medievally conceived dragon. He had symmetrical pointed scales of mud on him, and his soft velvet fur, like that of a chocolate brown mole, was visible at some places. The writer took almost another month to remove the mud on his pet otter to see his true colors. The zoologist named the otter Lutrogel perspectula maxwelli or Maxwell's otter. Mitchell was neither hostile nor friendly the first day. He was aloof and indifferent, choosing to sleep on the floor far away from the narrator's bed. On the second night, Mitchell came to the narrator's bed in the small hours and remained asleep in the crook of his knees till the servant brought tea in the morning. During the day, he started getting used to his surroundings and loved his half an hour in the bathroom, where he shot up and down in bathtub. He loved to splash around with steady water. The 2 days later, when the narrator entered his bedroom, Mitchell escaped to the bathroom and tried to get up on the end of the bathtub and tried to open the chromium tapes with his paws. If he couldn't open the tap, he would be annoyed. Mitchell would respond when the narrator called out his name. He loved to play with a rubber ball and marbles. The narrator had to bring Midge from Basra to Chemosferna in Scotland, but he had a problem as the British airline would not permit him to fly with Mitchell. He had to book a flight to Paris and then another one to London. He had to put Midge into a box which was no more than 18 inches square and carry him on the floor near his feet in the aircraft. After returning from his meal, the narrator found Mitchell exhausted and blood spattered in a box as he was trying to come out. He put Midge back into the box and reached the airport with a driver who literally drove very fast through the streets of Basra. It seemed the aircraft was just waiting for him. He put the box containing Midge over some newspapers near his seat, which was in the extreme front. He gave a parcel of fish meant for Midge to the air hostess to keep in a cool place. The air hostess was taken into confidence and she suggested that the narrator could keep his pet on his knees. The pet otter disappeared at high speed down the aircraft. People screamed and a woman stood up on her seat, calling Midge a rat. The narrator dived to catch Midge, who was disappearing beneath the legs of a fat white turbaned Indian, but couldn't catch him and ended up with curry on his face. The air hostess brought Midge back to the narrator. The writer remained in London for nearly a month, where Mitchell would play with toys, ping pong, balls, and marbles. The narrator also took him for walks on the streets on a lead as if he were a dog. Mitchell developed some compulsive habits like children do while walking on streets, that is, like touching some pillars of the iron railing, placing their feet on the center of each paving block, etc. Opposite the narrator's flat was a single storied primary school. Along its frontage ran a low wall of 2 feet high. Midge would jump on the wall and gallop its full 30 yards with a staff and pupil watching him. The average Londoner failed to recognize Mitchell as an otter because he belongs to a comparatively small groups of animals called mustelines. Some said He was a baby seal, walrus, squirrel, hippo, beaver, bear cub, leopard, etc. etc. Once a laborer stopped his digging and stared at Midgebill and asked the writer what was the animal with him supposed to be. So, this is all about the summary of the chapter. Now, let us proceed to the reading and explanation of the chapter. So, now we shall start with the third part of the chapter. The days passed peacefully at Basra, but I dared the protest of transporting Midge to England and to Chemosferna. The British airline to London would not fly animals, so I booked a flight to Paris on another airline and from there to London. The airline insisted that Midge should be packed into a box not more than 18 inches square to be carried on the floor at my feet. I had a box made, and an hour before we started, I put Midge into the box so that he could become accustomed to it and left for a hurried meal. When I returned, there was an appealing spectacle. There was a complete silence from the box, but from its air holes and chinks around the lid, blood had trickled and dried. I whipped off the log and tore open the lid, and Midge, exhausted and blood spattered, whimpered and caught at my leg. He had torn the lining of the box to shreds. When I removed the last of it so that there was no cutting edges left, it was just 10 minutes until the time of the flight, and the airport was 5 miles distant. I put the miserable Midge back into the box, holding down the lid with my hand. I sat in the back of the car with the box beside me as the driver tore through the streets of Basra like a ricocheting bullets. The aircraft was waiting to take off. I was rushed through it by infuriated officials. Luckily, the seat booked for me was at the extreme front. I covered the floor around my feet with newspaper, rang for the air hostess, and gave her a parcel of fish to keep in a cool place. I took her into my confidence about the event of the last half an hour. I have retained the most profound admiration of the air hostess. She was the very queen of her kind. She suggested that I might prefer to have my pet on my knee, and I could have kissed her hand in depth of my gratitude. But not knowing otters, I was quite unprepared for what followed. So eventually, what happened? The next day, both the author as well as Midge, they both means the author decided that now he was supposed to be taken to Scotland, but the British Airlines would not give permission about that thing because they don't allow pets with them, and this was, we can say, a great delusion for them what to do. And at that time duration, the author decided that he will take two different flights. So the first one was to Paris, and then he would travel to Paris, then to London. And there were certain rules which were also to be followed, that the box in which the pet is supposed to be kept was not supposed to be more than 18 inches, and moreover to that, the pet were not supposed to come out from there. It was very difficult, so the author made a box for Midge of not more than 18 inches, and he kept the Midge into the box, and then he left for the lunch, because next he was supposed to leave Basra and he was supposed to travel to Paris. When he actually had his meal and when he came back, at that time duration, what he observed that there was no movement in the box, and on the lid and on the side hole there were some, we can say, no, blood stains over there. So he was a bit, we can say, no, frightened with what eventually happened. After that, when he opened the lid, he saw that Midge was exhausted, full of blood, and he was lying over there. He wanted to come out from that box, so he was trying to pull things from it. He was trying to pull the shreds out of it, but he was unable to do that thing, and because of that situation, he had hurt himself very badly. Then, in emergency, he took him to the doctor, and at that time duration, he was given treatment and ailment for the same. But it was only 10 minutes which were left, and the author, we can say, no, have mended the box again, that those sharp edges would not hurt the midge. And he again put up, and when he reached the airlines, when he went inside the plane, at that time duration he asked the lady and he told about the whole situation which took place, and how, no, generous she was, that she told that it is totally fine, she would also take care of him. And the seat which was provided to him was in the extreme front of the plane, so he had a little bit of space where he could keep Midge. The air hostess was so kind that she also insisted and told that he could keep Midge on his lap, in his knees, he can keep near it. So all the newspapers were put down, they were, no, arranged well, and above it the box was kept. And she was so generous in her own kind that the author thought that she would know that he would kiss her hand in the depth of gratitude, because she understood what the pet has gone through. You can see the image over here. What is the next incident which is going to take place? You can see how small little the otter is. Yes, and how the white turban Indian and the women who is, standing up on the seat, and all the people are, panicking over there. You can see the image. Midge out of the box in a flash. He disappeared at high speed down the aircraft. There were squeaks and shrieks, and a woman stood up on her seat, screaming out, "A rat, a rat!" I caught the sight of Midge's tail disappearing beneath the legs of a portly white turbaned Indian, diving for it. I missed, but he found my face covered in curry. "Perhaps," said the air hostess with the most charming smile, "it would be better if you resumed your seat, and I'll find the animal and bring it to you." So now, eventually, what happened? That Mitch came out of the box and he disappeared at high speed. No, he was running here and there in the aircraft. People started, shouting and screaming, and they were, panicking a lot, that what animal is of this kind and from where it has come. And one of the lady, she started screaming, and she stood on her seat and she told that this is a rat. And at that time duration, the author also came to know that the Mitch was not inside the box, and he was disappearing so quickly that only he could not see the tail. And when the author, dived between the legs of the turbaned Indian, and at that time duration he missed to catch, but the curry which was over there was spread all over the face of the author. And at that time duration, the air hostess told her in the most decent mannerism, very calmly, she told that it would be good enough that if you resume your seat, and she will get the animal back to you. I returned to my seat, I was craning my neck trying to follow the hunt when suddenly I heard from my feet a distressed chitter of recognition and welcome, and Midge bounded on to my knee and began to nuzzle my face and my neck. So what eventually happened, that the author thought that it would be good enough that the air hostess would find, because there was plenty of panic going on. So the author resumed the seat back, and he was not trying to follow that where he eventually went, because that scream was heard, and somehow the air hostess found him and got him back to the author, and Mitch was bounded on my knees. Okay, and he was over there, and he gently, nuzzle means to rub his nose around the knee and his face and neck. So he was very happy enough to be free from that 18 inches of box. It is so horrible to stay. Part 4. After an eventful journey, Maxwell and his otter reach London, where he has a flat. Now, this is part 4 of the chapter, and they have successfully reached London, and they are living over there, and they are living in a flat. Mitch and I remained in London for nearly a month. He would play for hours with the selection of toys, ping pong balls, marbles, fruit, and a terrapin shell that I had brought back from his native marshes. With the ping pong ball, he invented a game of his own, which could keep him engrossed for up to half an hour at a time. A suitcase that I had taken to Iraq had become damaged on the journey home, so that the lead, when I closed, remained at a slope from one end to the other. Mitch discovered that if he placed the ball on the high end, it would run down the length of the suitcase. He would dash around to the other end to ambush its travel, hide from it, crouching to spring up and take it by surprise, grab it, and trot off with the high end once more. So eventually, what happened, that the author and Midge remained in London for nearly a month, and Midge used to play for hours. He had plenty of toys. He had ping pong balls and marbles and rubber fruits, plenty of things he was having. And with ping pong ball, he had invented a game that the author was having some defect in a suitcase which he had taken to Iraq, but now it was damaged when they were returning. And at that time duration, Midge found out a game from it, that he used to place a ball on the top of it, and when he would slide it down, it would come the slope. And no, he would run down to the length of the suitcase, and he would wait for the ball to come down, and he would grab it and take it by surprise and trot off with the high end. Outside the house, I exercised him on a lead, precisely as if he had been a dog. Midge quickly developed certain compulsive habits on these walks in the London streets, like the rituals of children who, on their way to and from the school, must place their feet squarely on the center of each paving block, must touch the seventh upright of the iron railing, or pass to the outside of every second lamppost. Opposite to my flat was a single storied primary school, along whose frontage ran a low wall some 2 feet high, and his way home, but never on his way out, Mitch would tug me to this wall, jump on it, and gallop the full length of its 30 yards to the hopeless distractions both the pupil and of the staff within. So now eventually what happened, that Mitchell developed some sort of compulsive habits like small children used to do. He would while walking on the streets, he would like touching some pillars of the iron railing, placing their feet on the center of each paving block. And no, opposite to narrator's flat, there was a single storied primary school, and along its frontage ran a low wall of 2 feet height. So Midge would jump on that wall and gallop all the 30 yards with the staff and people watching him, because the people in London were so much surprised about it. And they were not taken aback that who this creature exactly is. It is not, I suppose, in any way strange that an average Londoner should not recognize an otter. But the variety of guesses as to what kind of animal this might be has become as a surprise to me. Otters belongs to a comparatively small group of animals called mustelines, shared by the badgers, mongoose, weasels, stoat, mink, and others. I faced a continued barrage of conjectural questions that sprayed all the musculines but the otter. More random guesses hit on a baby seal and a squirrel is that a walrus, Mr. Reduced me to giggles. And outside a dog show, I heard a hippo, a beaver, a bear cub, a leopard, one apparently that I had changed its spots to brontosaur, which was not anything but an otter. So whenever the author used to take Midge outside for walk in London streets, people used to guess so much. They never recognized him as an otter. Some of them would call him a baby seal, some would call him a hippo or a squirrel or a walrus, mongoose, badger, stork, mink, so many. Even a baby cub or a leopard, and some of them even called otter as a brontosaur also. But Midge was nothing but an otter. So a stream of questions would not flow, and the author would not always be attracted about how people are connected and how they were excited to see this new creature. They always used to keep on guessing who this actually is, and none of them eventually knew that who it was. But the question for which I awarded the highest score came from a laborer digging a hole in the street. I was still far from him when he laid down his stool, put his hands on his hips, and began to stare. As I drew nearer, I saw his expression of surprise and affront, as though he would have me know that he was not one upon whom to play jokes. I came abreast of him. He spat, glared, and then growled out, "Here, mister, what is that supposed to be?" So, eventually, what happened? The author told that he might have come through so many different questions, and but out of them he loved one question, and that would get the highest score because the way he asked. And one laborer was digging a hole in the street, and at that time duration they were far enough. Midge and the author were far enough from him, but when he saw, he just put down his tools and he put his hands on his hips, and he just continuously was not staring at both of them. When the author and the Midge came near to each other, his expression of surprise was commendable. And moreover to that, they told that no, he certainly asked. He just stared and spat and growled out, and he said, "Here, mister, what is that supposed to be?" So he was even unable to recognize that who as a pet he was. Other people no guessed that he would be a hippo, or he would be a baby seal, or he would be no, we can say any other, a squirrel or a beaver or baby cub. So many no options were there, but this laborer given extremely good question now put forward, that what is this no species supposed to be. Yes, so this is all about the chapter Mitchell, the author. So, I hope that you all have understood the chapter. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. If you still find any doubt or difficulties, you can comment down in the comment section below. Thank you, everyone.